Welcome to this explainer. All right, let's just dive right in, shall we? Today, we are tackling a deeply frustrating physical mystery, one that leaves, honestly, so many men completely exhausted and just totally confused. We're going to look at exactly why those intense chest workouts you're doing sometimes yield absolutely zero results. What is actually going on beneath the surface?
Picture this. You are absolutely committed, right? You're doing 100 push-ups a day, you're strictly counting every single calorie, and you're virtually starving yourself trying to lose that fluffy chest fat. You step on the scale, and hey, the weight is dropping. But then you look in the mirror. Your chest still looks raised, it's puffy, and it seems completely unchanged. You probably assume, well, I just need to work out harder, or I need to run longer. But I'm here to tell you, that's actually a physical mistake.
Why? Because the shocking biological truth here is that the mass on your chest might not be soft body fat at all. Instead, it could literally be an actual firm breast gland that is actively growing right under your skin. And here's the thing, you cannot sweat out a solid gland. You definitely can't burn off a rubbery mass of tissue just by running on a treadmill. It doesn't work like that. So to actually fix this, we need to understand the biology.
So let's get into Section 1, soft fat versus solid gland, knowing the difference. Medical professionals actually divide this issue into two entirely different categories. On one side, we have pseudogynecomastia. Now, this is simply excess fat stored in the chest area, usually just due to weight gain. It feels soft and squishy to the touch, like regular fat. But on the flip side, we have true gynecomastia. This is an actual growth of firm breast gland tissue. You see, every man has a tiny amount of this glandular tissue resting right behind the nipple. But in some guys, it starts to grow. If you press on it, it doesn't feel like soft fat. Actually, scratch that. It feels more like a firm, rubbery lump, almost like a small grape or a rubber disc hiding right there under the skin.
And you know, this brings up the incredibly cruel irony of this whole condition. Think about it. If you have true gynecomastia, that solid glandular growth, and you decide to hit the gym and lose your body fat, your chest doesn't magically look better. In fact, when that surrounding soft fat melts away, the hard gland underneath the nipple actually looks way more obvious. It's more prominent because there's just no fat left around it to smooth out the shape of your chest. As one clinical observation noted perfectly, it literally feels like you are being punished for getting into great shape.
Moving on to Section 2, the hormone tug-of-war, the invisible battle.
Okay, so the absolutely crucial point here is understanding this unseen biological tug-of-war between two main hormones, testosterone and estrogen. Now, a lot of people think estrogen is strictly a female hormone, right? But men produce it too, just in smaller amounts. Your chest tissue stays perfectly flat as long as your testosterone levels remain higher than your estrogen. It's a balance. But if that balance tips and estrogen suddenly takes the lead, well, your chest gland receives an immediate biological signal to start growing outward.
And for a massive portion of the population, this shift happens completely naturally. Clinical research shows that nearly half, yes, 50% of all men over the age of 50 will experience some level of this tissue growth. So why does that happen? Well, as men age, natural testosterone production slowly drops. At the very same time, older men often carry a bit more body fat. And here is the real kicker. Those fat cells, they actually contain an enzyme that converts your hard-earned testosterone straight into estrogen. It's like a double whammy. Your main male hormone is dropping from age, and your extra weight is actively creating more of the exact hormone that grows chest tissue. Crazy, right?
But wait, what if you're young and in great shape? Well, researchers looking at sudden cases in younger, completely healthy men found a really surprising statistic. Nearly a quarter, 25% of these sudden cases, are caused entirely by everyday things hiding right in their own homes.
So let's look at these hidden triggers. We're talking about things in your medicine cabinet or even your weekend habits. Certain prescription drugs used to treat high blood pressure, anti-anxiety medications, and even those really common pills prescribed to stop male pattern hair loss, they can all throw off your hormone balance enough to trigger this growth as a side effect. And beyond the pharmacy, recreational habits are huge culprits. Take anabolic steroids, for example. They provide massive artificial testosterone, but your body tries to balance it out by converting a huge chunk of it straight into estrogen. That causes rapid gland growth. Even heavy alcohol consumption or frequent marijuana use can suppress your natural testosterone just enough to let estrogen take over the driver's seat.
Which brings us to Section 3, the surgical solution, the permanent fix.
Now, a plastic surgeon approaches the chest a lot like an architect. They break down the anatomy into 3 distinct target layers: the fat, the gland, and the skin. And to get that chest completely flat, they have to address all 3 of these layers perfectly. Here is exactly how they do it, step by step.
Step 1 is liposuction. The surgeon makes a tiny, almost invisible puncture and vacuums out the excess fat to flatten the surrounding area. Then, step 2 is the incision. Remember, a vacuum cannot suck out a solid rubbery mass, so the surgeon makes a small incision right along the bottom edge of the areola. That's where the dark skin meets the light skin, so the scar blends in perfectly, and they physically extract the entire piece of glandular tissue by hand. Finally, step 3 is skin tightening. Now, this is usually only needed for very large chests where excess loose skin has to be removed just to ensure a tight, contoured look.
Let's move into Section 4, Recovery and Prevention, Post-Surgery Care.
Think about it. When a surgeon pulls a chunk of solid tissue out of your body, it obviously leaves an empty pocket right there under the skin. Your body's natural healing response is to immediately try and fill that empty space with fluid. In the medical world, doctors call this fluid buildup a seroma.
So, to prevent a seroma from coming in and ruining the results, patients have to wear a specialized compression garment around their chest for several weeks. You can kind of think of it as a constant, tight hug. It presses the skin firmly down against the chest muscle. That way, there's absolutely no empty room for fluid to collect, literally forcing the chest to heal perfectly flat.
Of course, when balancing the post-surgery reality, we have to acknowledge that like any procedure, there are risks. We're talking mild asymmetry, potentially visible scars, or maybe some temporary numbness around the nipple. However, when we look at the actual clinical data, the rewards heavily outweigh the risks for most men. There is an overwhelmingly high satisfaction rate here, simply because waking up to a flat chest instantly removes a massive source of daily anxiety and social embarrassment. It's a real game changer.
Now, the absolute most common question people ask is, will it just come right back? Well, the great news is that once the actual gland is physically removed by a surgeon, it is generally gone for good. That exact piece of glandular tissue cannot just magically regrow from nothing. You have secured a permanent victory over the gland itself.
But, fair warning, you can still ruin the overall results if you return to the exact same habits that caused your hormone imbalance in the very first place, like, say, going back to massive amounts of anabolic steroids, or if you gain a significant amount of weight, you will pack fresh fat right back onto the chest. The area will stretch out, and you're going to look puffy all over again. So, keeping it flat permanently really means maintaining a stable weight and just avoiding the substances that throw your hormones into chaos.
Listen, dealing with a changing chest can be incredibly frustrating, but understanding your own anatomy and knowing exactly what you are fighting makes all the difference in the world. So I want to leave you with this question to think about. Have you ever struggled to figure out if you were dealing with soft chest fat or an actual firm gland? Taking control of your health always starts with understanding the signals your body is sending you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this brought you some powerful clarity today.